This presentation is about the 100 Years' War, and the 100 Years' War was fought between England and France. It actually lasted a little over 100 years, and it started about 10 years before the Black Death occurred in Europe, and it ended in 1453. And when we studied the Byzantine Empire, that was the same year that the Ottoman Turks conquered Constantinople. So the war occurred for a couple reasons. English rulers had claimed land in France, well, their ancestors had, and so they wanted to hold on to this land. But the French kings wanted more power in France, so they didn't want the English kings to have the land that had been claimed in France. And the war actually started when Edward III claimed he was the French king because his mom was a French princess. And so that's what actually caused the war to start. England and France also wanted control of the English Channel and trade in the area, so they had that economic rivalry. At any point, if the video is going too fast, you should pause it to make sure you can fill in your note sheet. So the English got off to a good start and won some battles early on, partially because of the longbow. And the next slide will talk about why the longbow was so effective. It didn't end up that the English won the war, but they got off to a good start. The longbow was used by England, and the big deal with that was that it shot 3 arrows in the same amount of time that the crossbow shot 1 arrow. So let's say it took a minute for the longbow to shoot 3 arrows. In that same minute, 1 arrow would be shot from the crossbow. So it was a lot quicker, the longbow was. And it also could pierce armor. So that started to make knights less effective than they had been during feudalism. So France started to do well in the war when Joan of Arc started to lead the army. When she was 17, she asked the French king if she said that God sent her to save France. She told the French king that, and she was allowed to lead an army against England. And she did a good job and was inspirational to the troops and led France to several victories. And that's at an age when, well, at least she started at an age that's just about 3 years older than most of you. Unfortunately, because of her success, she eventually was captured by England or English allies and tried for witchcraft. Witchcraft is kind of an easy thing to accuse people of because figuring out if they're guilty or not is somewhat subjective. So when you study U.S. history, you'll study the Salem witch trials, which happened in Salem, Massachusetts, but it's easy. It's not that hard. I mean, it's just subjective in terms of if someone's guilty or not. So it was an easy thing to accuse her of because they could kind of make it so that she was convicted and then she was killed, burned at the stake. And you see there's a picture there kind of depicting what that might have looked like. So when Joan died, the French saw it, they rallied around her death. They saw her as a martyr, as someone who makes a sacrifice for a larger cause. So the French also had the cannon as a weapon, and this allowed them to attack English castles in France and destroy them. So by 1453, when the war ended, England had the port of Calais in France, control of that, but that's about it. And France won the war. So the cannon was helpful, obviously, because it's powerful, and the cannon destroyed castles, so that made the castles kind of useless at this point in history. So the impact of the war in France was that they had a lot of pride in their country. Kings got more power because France won the war. In England, Parliament gained power to distribute government money and kind of decide how it was spent. And they got more power in general. So the next slide will review what Parliament is in case you forget. But England also, since they lost the war and didn't have all that land that they had claimed in France, now focus on trading overseas. So Parliament is the legislature of Great Britain. They make laws just like Congress does in the United States. In general, the Hundred Years' War made it so that castles and knights were useless. The cannon obviously destroyed castles. The longbow pierced the armor of knights. So society changed in general also because monarchs wanted armies, not vassals, to fight. And in the armies, they would have soldiers. So feudalism started to decrease because the knights are useless. So that's basically taking away one social class of feudalism. The castles are useless. You don't need the vassals anymore. You want soldiers in the army instead. So this is the 100 Years' War is one of the reasons why feudalism started to crumble and fall apart. So this slide gives you a link to a song I have about the 100 Years' War and other issues that led to the decline of feudalism. So only the first part of the song relates to this topic, and then you'll watch a PowerPoint about the decline of feudalism soon, and then the whole song might make more sense. But if you want a sneak peek, you can check it out. And my singing is particularly bad because the notes are kind of high, and I'm not the best singer, and you'll see that once you start listening to the song. So in general, also the 100 Years' War led to Italian cities becoming strong centers of trade and shipping, which influenced why the Renaissance started in Italy and not in another European country. And so you'll see that once Europe can recover from the Black Death and the 100 Years' War, things start to improve, and some of it leads up to the Renaissance.